Aaron Rodgers is Aaron Rodgers, and that's all I have to say. He's still a top 5 quarterback in this league, and there's nothing really anyone can do about it.
Everyone's looking for the young guy. They're looking for McVay. I think take a shot out Todd Bowles, get him a second shot at head coach, and see if he can do it.
I don't think they will. If they don't have Anthony Davis, I'm saying it right now, if Anthony Davis is out for the playoffs, they don't make it out of the first round.
It's crazy. And our kids will know how great Tom Brady is because he's going to be playing.
Yes, it is 15.0%. I swear we didn't script that.
All I could think of was Dame.
6-0. There could not be a better name.
Speaking of young guys, how about the goalie, Ottinger?
He was a 6th-round pick. This is a fairy tale story that's being written in front of our eyes.
That's what the Yankees brought Garrett Cole to do.
They didn't struggle against the Padres. The Padres didn't really put up a fight in most of the games.
Jerry Jones, hope you're listening because this is why you shouldn't have given Zeke this contract. Just thought I'd point that out.
I feel like Luka will take that next step, and if he can get a 3 ball consistently around 35%, I feel like they could become a contender.
While with the Padres and Marlins, I think it's coming in the near future.
They're my pick to win the most rings in the 2020s.
I was shocked by Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, Montreal has one of the best goalies in the league with Carey Price.
People like to call them their JV team, and they just stole one of their better players.
Hi, I'm Landon Bowe, and you're listening to Outsiders Opinions with Kevin and Austin.
What's up, y'all? Welcome to our 47th episode where we will be going over the NHL Trade Deadline. Make sure to check out our last episode, which is when we did a championship review for March Madness. And if you are listening to us on Apple Podcasts, make sure to give us a review as we appreciate it. Now let's get into the NHL Trade Deadline as it was really busy. The first trade we have is the Winnipeg Jets acquire defenseman Jordy Ben from the Canucks in exchange for a 2021 6th-round pick. Just what are your thoughts on this trade, Austin?
So Jordy Ben has jumped around teams in the past recent years, and he's really trying to find his footing. But at the same time, the Jets they need defensemen. Ever since Justin Bufflin has retired before last season, it's really hindered their ability to have quality defensemen and a quality defenseman core. And so they're definitely going to need anybody they can get, especially a veteran guy like Ben, who's played in the league for now. I think this is his 10th season. It just adds some protection for the younger guys, and they're going to need anybody they can to help on the defensive side, as that's been their weakness over the past 1.5 seasons.
Yeah, and the Canucks get a nice pick for a player that they weren't really going to resign in Ben. Now I think we can move on to the next trade, which is the Ben Hutton trade, as Toronto Maple Leafs acquire Ben Hutton from Anaheim Ducks in exchange for a 2022 5th-round pick. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I think this is a good trade. Many people, it's not a big trade per se, but Ben Hutton, I think, is a quality defenseman also. He's not one of those premier defenders. He's going to get you a ton of points, but he's not the worst when it comes to the defensive side. He just didn't fit with Anaheim, and Anaheim isn't playing all that well right now. They're one of the worst teams in the league, statistically speaking, and the Toronto Maple Leafs are obviously trying to make a run, and it doesn't hurt to get another defenseman when you're trying to make a run at a cup.
Yeah, you mentioned Anaheim, and they're not doing well, so they're definitely rebuilding, and they didn't see Hutton in their future, and it's a good move by the Maple Leafs, as you said. People are going to get hurt. It's the hockey season, and if they want to make the deep run to the playoffs, they're going to need players, and Ben Hutton is a good defenseman that can help. I think we can move on to the next trade, which was the San Jose Sharks acquire forward Alexander Barabanov from Toronto Maple Leafs in exchange for forward Antti Suomela. What are your thoughts on that trade?
Yeah,
and
this
my
is
pronunciation?
Your pronunciation was fine for the first time saying it, but this is obviously another small trade, just trying to do the little things to prepare for not only now but for the future. Barabanov, I don't think, has even played a game in the NHL yet. and he's just a young prospect. Same with Swamella. Uh, but again, it's just a move by a team to try to see if they can better their roster before a cup run. Maybe one of these guys, uh, maybe Swamella can become a player in the future that can help them win a ring, and they're just preparing for the future here. I like the move because they're just trying to improve it slowly. So Melo has played this year, but he hasn't all been all that effective. And again, it's just injury prevention or injury care. It's just an insurance plan that if players get injured, you have another player who's played in the league before that knows the ins and outs of playing hockey.
Yeah, and the Sharks get Bonov as a good prospect as they're trying to avoid that full scale rebuild. But I think we can move on to the next trade, which would be the Washington Capitals, who made a lot more moves. We'll get to that later in the episode. Acquire forward Michael Raff from Philadelphia Flyers in exchange for a 2021 fifth round draft pick.
Um, Yeah. This trade is another one that is just an insurance plan. The Capitals are trying to make a run, and the Flyers are really falling off. Raffle, I don't think played all that well with the Flyers this season, because I mean they after that loss to the Buffalo Sabres, after they ended their very long run as a losing team and never had won a game. I think 17 games, some crazy number like that. Raffle was just someone not fitting in, and he's played a game with Washington already, and while he only played 13-ish minutes, he I think adds something as a physical presence. He's only 6 foot 200, but he knows the defensive side of hockey, and he's another veteran player that could help a team that's right now at the top of the division.
Yeah, and I'm sure Buffalo Sabres fans wish it was 17 games, but it was actually 18 games. Just to help you with that one. And then yeah, Raffle didn't. He played 34 games for the Flyers and got 3 goals, 5 assists, so a total of 8 points. But I'm sure that the Capitals are see him as good depth, and he can be a sneaky secondary scorer and can help with their penalty kill. And as we've seen in the playoffs, penalty kill and the power play are a huge thing for um, teams that will go far in the Stanley Cup Finals, and teams that are bad at it will go home very quickly. I think we can move on to the next trade, which would be the Nashville Predators acquire defenseman Eric Gudbranson from Ottawa Senators in exchange for defenseman Brandon Fortunato and a 2023 seventh round draft pick. Ottawa Senators taking notes from the basketball team Oklahoma City Thunder and just stockpiling those draft picks. What are your thoughts on the trade?
Yeah, it's definitely a good plan, especially when you're not going to make the playoffs. The Ottawa Senators, while I think they play better than their record shows, they are in my opinion in the worst division, and they are not currently playing at a level that's going to get them into the playoffs. So moving a guy like a Branson is not going to hurt them. Um, but it is going to help, like you say here in the doc, the Nashville as they're making a last push for a playoffs. It's really been a tough go of it at the beginning of the season for Nashville, and their defensemen, while they have a great defensive core, wasn't stepping up to the level it has before. Yossi and some of those other guys were getting hurt, and so having another player that's played quality minutes this year uh, with experience definitely will help them as they try to make a push to win, to be the team that gets that final playoff spot.
Yeah, and getting Gudbranson, if they make that final playoff spot, they have to go against the Carolina Hurricanes, which is a team that's playing really well. And then you also have Tampa Bay Lightning to go. So just getting good players as the Stars are making plays, and the Blackhawks might be in contention for that spot. But I think we can move on to the next trade, which would be the Montreal Canadiens acquire defenseman Eric Gustafsson from Philadelphia Flyers in exchange for a 2022 seventh round draft pick. And this is another series of trades we saw from the Flyers, and they're in a really difficult division. And from the trades we've seen as they're acquiring picks, I just kind of saw them kind of taking their foot out of that playoff push and looking towards the future.
Yeah, and like I said earlier, the defensive core has not been playing well. Raffle, even though he was not a defenseman, he was a left winger and played a defensive role as a winger. And now they trade Gustafsson, who was a defenseman, who's only been signed with the team during free agency and wasn't playing all that well for what the team needed defensively speaking. He was an okay offensive player because he had I think 10 or 11 points in the 20 something games that he played with Philly this year. But now Montreal gets a player that I think could give him quality minutes as a push for their playoff spot when they're going to have to play most likely the Leafs or the Jets in the first round. They need as many defensive players as they can get, as both of those teams are offensively minded to say the least.
Yeah, that's an excellent point you make. And Gustafsson is a good offensive weapon. And when you're facing the Maple Leafs, who are just on a tear right now, that's the thing you need to do. And I think we can move on to the next trade, which would be the Florida Panthers acquire forward Sam Bennett and a 2022 six-round draft pick from Calgary Flames in exchange for forward Emil Heineman and a 2022 second-round draft pick. I like this move for the Panthers as they lost Ekplat, and Ekplat was doing an excellent job for the Panthers. But Sam Bennett is a good player, as he is a guy that they hope he can replicate what he did in the past playoffs, as they are also in that tough Central Division, and they may have to face the Tampa Bay Lightning if the standings remain the same, and that's a tough matchup when you're playing a great goalie in Vasilevsky.
Yeah, Sam Bennett's someone I really expected to be a better player in the regular season, but like you said, he's been an outstanding player in the playoffs. Over his last 15 games, or basically the last two seasons, he played 5 in 18, 19, and 10 last year. He has 13 points in those 15 games, and he's really been a quality asset to the Calgary Flames during their playoffs. But I don't really see the Flames making the playoffs, and Sam Bennett wasn't all that great of a fit. Um, and I think this is the right move for Florida. Like you said, they lost Ekblad, and while Sam Bennett is not a defenseman, they needed more offense, like Ekblad was bringing to the team, and they just needed another leader who has experience in the playoffs. This is a team that has not made the playoffs many times. They got Carter Verhaeghe from the Lightning, a player who has. They got Patrick Hornqvist, who was been with the Penguins for a long time, made the playoffs a lot of times. This year, the Panthers are really stockpiling players who have experience in the playoffs, have been there before, to have done well in them, um, with full expectations of making a run this year, despite the fact they haven't made the playoffs really in since 2016.
Yeah, and just to go to your point about the regular season, Sam Bennett he was the fourth overall draft pick. Um, so he does have high expectations, and that's something he should definitely work on for the regular season. But he should be do well in the playoffs. I think we can move on to the next trade, which would be the Canucks acquired defenseman Madison Bowie and a fifth round pick in 2021 NHL draft from Chicago Blackhawks in exchange for a fourth round draft pick in the 2021 NHL draft. So the Blackhawks stockpiling some picks while the Canucks get a good defenseman that get a defenseman that can help them play, as they have multiple players out for COVID right now.
Yeah, and they also just traded Jordy Ben, as we mentioned earlier, and so they needed to get another defenseman. And while Bowie hasn't played all that much this season, um, he's a player that has some upside. He's only uh 25 or 26 right now. I think he just turned 26 recently. Uh, and he's a player that I hasn't really gotten a quality amount of time this year. Uh, especially because he's only played 2 games, and he only played a majority of the time with Detroit and Washington before that. Um, and the Canucks are, if they want to make a run at the end of this season, they're going to need defensemen to step up. Uh, and the Blackhawks are just preparing for next season. As while they do have a chance to make the playoffs, still, it's a tough road, especially in a tough Central Division.
And he did just turn 26 2 days ago on April 22nd. So happy belated birthday to Madison Bowie. And I think we can move on to the next trade as we have the Washington Capitals. This is probably a huge trade that happened on the trade deadline. The Washington Capitals acquired forward Anthony Mantha from the Detroit Red Wings in exchange for forward Jacob Vanra, and Stars fans should know this guy's name, Richard Panik, a 2021 first round pick and a 2022 second round pick. And we've talked about this when we did Stanley Cup or Bust. And to me, the Capitals kind of really separated themselves. I can see an argument there for the Bruins as they made a lot of trades. But to me, the Capitals really pushed all their chips for this season. And it just seems very clear in that trade for Anthony and Mantha. Do you agree or disagree?
I agree 100%, and the reason why I agree is because this is a terrible trade for the long term. It's terrible. They are giving way too much for a player that I don't believe deserves that much. However, they don't know what their roster is going to be like next season. They have to prepare for the now. And like we said, they are a championship or bust team. They have older players like Chara. We don't know how Invection's going to do next season. Injuries may start to accrue. There's Nicholas Backstrom, who's not getting any younger, and TJ Oshie not getting any younger. And so they pick up Manta, who's having a quality season for Detroit, and they probably gave up too much for him, but they wanted to make sure they added another piece to this team, added another quality winger to their roster in a dying attempt to secure not only the 1 seed but a deep run in the playoffs. It's not a cup ring. So while I don't think this is the best trade in the world, especially for the long term, as I think they're giving up way too much for a player that I don't think deserves it, uh, they are, like you said, banking on this season. And if they win it, if they do win a ring, I don't think it matters if this was a bad trade and it was 100% worth it.
Yeah, and the Capitals are hoping that Mantha can elevate their top six as as we've mentioned, they're in a tough division. And then great job by Detroit taking advantage of the Capitals. I think I can say desperate. I think desperate's a good word for what they're doing right now. For their desperate attempt to get to uh, secure the 1 seed and getting some nice picks, because if it doesn't work out well, that can turn into a nice pick. And if the Red Wings hit on that, that really accelerates their rebuild.
Yeah, Iserman has um, done an amazing job recently, especially in trades. And I definitely could see this working out greatly for Detroit in the long run, especially as they're starting to play better this season. They're really growing as a team right now. So I really like this move for Detroit, and the Capitals. They need to prove that this was a good trade by winning a cup.
All right, so I think we can move on to the next trade, which is the Anaheim Ducks acquire defenseman Hayden Fleury from the Carolina Hurricanes in exchange for defenseman Jenny Hakanpää and a 6th round pick in the 2022 NHL draft. And this is just a trade where Carolina kind of gets a good defenseman as they trade away a good defenseman away to Anaheim, and they get some good cap room. As Carolina's doing a great job in the Central Division, they may want to get some players in this upcoming offseason to help them in the future. What do you think?
Yeah, this is just a trade to try to move cap around. There's been some concern this year, especially amongst teams that are close to the cap. So it's going to be a flat cap for I think the next 2 or 3 seasons. So moving away cap room in exchange for another player that's in the same position, I think is a good move. While it's not a winning move per se, it is a good move for the long run. As maybe you're able to pick up that free agent that everybody can't pick up because of their cap room, and that's really been an issue this season is the cap. And so moving cap room to prepare for the future, I think is a good move right now.
Yeah, and Anaheim gets a good player that they can maybe see in the future and just try it out. I think we can move on to the next trade, which is the Vegas Golden Knights acquire forward Matthias Janmark, defenseman Nick DeSimone, and a fifth-round pick in the 2022 NHL Draft from the Chicago Blackhawks and San Jose Sharks in exchange for a second-round pick in the 2021 Draft and a third-round pick in the 2022 NHL Draft. San Jose receives a fifth round pick in the 2022 NHL draft. The big thing here for me is Matthias Janmark goes to the Knights. And he is a good third line center and a good trade from the Blackhawks as they kind of flip Janmark as he's only on a 1 year contract. And the Vegas Knights get a good center who can help them in the playoffs, maybe elevate it because the center right now, I'm blanking on his name. I'm hoping you can help me uh, when you give your thoughts. Um, Matthias Janmark can help elevate that third line as Vegas is going to have to go through the Avalanche if they want to go far in the playoffs. What do you think?
So what center are you talking about? I kind of lost you there.
The third line center for the Vegas Golden Knights before they got Janmark.
Oh, let me think. But while I'm searching that up to make sure, Yanmark, I think this is the best trade for both teams during the trade deadline. Yanmark is a quality player that gives tough minutes, especially during the penalty kill. It showed that during last year's playoff run with the Stars. uh, it's been an interesting season for him this season, and I love in every sport when a team trades a guy that is on his last contract and gets something quality out of it. We saw that in the NBA this year with Evan Fournier, Boston trading a good bit, just 2 second-round picks to get Evan Fournier, but you never know how those picks are going to turn out. I like this trade for Chicago because they are getting rid of a player that, like you said, uh, is on his last year of his contract. Was a 1 year deal, and so flipping him for uh, cap room and some future down the road, I definitely think is the best move.
Yeah, and then the Sharks get some good players in this trade. And as we've mentioned before, they're trying to avoid that full scale rebuild. Any updates on the third line center?
I'm trying to find it right now.
Okay. I'll stall with this time as the Blackhawks made multiple moves and they're just building towards the future, which kind of takes them out of the central, I think, central race for that bottom four spot. So as I continue to stall time,
I think it was, but I think it's Cody Glass, but I don't know for sure.
that sounds right from what I was reading. I think, and he's underperforming right now. So Janmark coming in really gets the Vegas Golden Knights up for the playoff push, as that those fans are just getting spoiled right now with the first 4 years of that team being competitive.
Yeah, and like I said, the penalty kill is an essential part to any team. Even if you have a player that's only really playing on the penalty kill, that's quality minutes. You can't allow goals on the power play and expect to win. You can look at the Stars last year in the against Tampa. They were allowing the Tampa to score at such a high rate that they really didn't have a chance of winning that series. Well, I think they were outplaying them necessarily during in the when it was 5-on-5. Uh, you're going to get penalties, and you have to have a quality penalty kill. And I think Janmark was their best penalty killer last year for the Stars, and he's definitely going to bring something to an already great defensive team in the Golden Knights.
Yeah, my mind went to a completely different. I went to the way beginning, the early beginning of that Stars playoff run against the Calgary Flames, where each night they would have a shorthanded goal when they were on the power play. So, uh, now talking about it out loud, it makes sense. I was thinking of the wrong special teams, but I think we can move on to the next trade, which is the Colorado Avalanche acquire forward a guy they're very a guy that's similar to their system or knows their system very well. Carl Soderberg from the Chicago Blackhawks in exchange for forward Josh Dickinson and the rights to forward Ryder Rolston. So the Blackhawks gaining more prospects and the Avalanche gaining some ammo as they tried to gear up as it's most likely going to be a face off between the Vegas Knights and the Colorado Avalanche. in that division final. Your thoughts?
Yeah, you hinted at it. Um, Carl Soderberg played a very large amount of his career in Colorado, and I definitely like this move to pick him up. He knows the system. He's been with him. Uh, well, he's being with him again for the first time since 18-19, but he played, I think, 5 seasons with him, give or take a season. And picking him up, I think it's a good move. He's a good defensive center, and it's going to help the Avalanche as they're more of an offensive minded team. And you can never get enough defensive centers, especially because if a player gets injured, you're going to need that ammo to restock the team as you go along during the playoffs for the season.
I think it was just a little bit below 5 years, as you said. He joined him in 2015 and then he left around 2019. So you can round up on that one, about 5 years. I think we can move on to the next trade, which is the Tampa Bay Lightning acquire defenseman Frederick Clausen from San Jose Sharks in exchange for rights to goaltender Magnus Krona. Sharks get a good goalie prospect from Tampa Bay, and Tampa Bay gets Clausen, provides good depth for the team. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's another just depth trade. I like these moves for from good teams because it just adds to your team's ability to endure injuries. While you never want an injury to happen, um, it just prepares for that. And so I think this is a good move by the Lightning to pick up Klaus.
Then we're closing in to the end of the trades on trade deadline. The next trade is Edmonton Oilers acquire defenseman Dmitry Kulikov from New Jersey Devils in exchange for a conditional fourth round pick in the 2022 NHL draft. Devils just getting some better players as they are near the bottom in their conference, and Edmonton gets a player that is skilled defensively and can help them as they try to make a playoff run of their own. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, the Devils just got young players, and Kulikov, he's really excelled in his career as a uh, defenseman. He's played in the league for a while now, and he knows how to play in big games. He was on that Winnipeg team that went on the run, I believe, to the conference finals. So he's played some quality minutes before when it counts most. And I really like this trade for both teams because Edmonton hasn't really been a team known for its defensive prowess, especially of late. Even during their runs in the 80s, they just really couldn't. They weren't a defensive team. They were really good because they had Gretzky and Messier, and they were just going to outscore you because they had two of the best players of all time, and you really couldn't do nothing about it. But they never really had a great defenseman, and I think this just adds to try to help the uh, the depth on the defensive side. And as a team that is really offensive centric and a very offensive centric division with the Maple Leafs, the Jets, Canadians, and all these teams mostly having a offensive mindset, getting another defenseman won't hurt.
Yeah, and now we head to a trade, which I know I'd be shocked if you didn't like this trade. And I hinted at it a little bit before, as they are one of our teams that is Stanley Cup or bust. And as the Boston Bruins acquire forward Taylor Hall and Curtis Lazar from Buffalo Sabres in exchange for forward Andrus Bjork and a second round pick in the 2021 NHL draft. Taylor Hall is a great offensive player that can help the Bruins as they are again in a difficult division with some high powered offenses. So Taylor Hall gives them a good player to help maybe score goals. And they didn't really give that much, in my opinion, up for a guy of Taylor Hall's caliber. What do you think?
Um, I really like this trade. It's another doing anything you can to win a championship trade. I like acquiring Curtis Lazar also. I think he's an underrated pickup. But Taylor Hall, he's been a player that recently has needed to be not the best player on his team to excel. And that's not a bad thing, especially for a player that is had his own fair share of people talking bad about him, especially ever since he won the Hart in 17-18 with the Devils. He's really needed a season or half a season where he isn't even the best player on his line, uh, and that really helps. He's not going to play much with players like uh, Pasternak or Bergeron on the same line or Marchand, but I think Krejci can really help him on the second line. And he definitely, we needed scoring depth on the Bruins. I know as a Bruins fan, I've watched most of their games this season, and second tier scoring is really needed right now. And I think that this fits both needs for the Bruins. And for Buffalo, they just get some players that are help them in the rebuilding process. I like Bjork, but I feel like Bjork in a second rounder is enough for Taylor Hall for a 1 year rental, really, of or half a season rental of Taylor Hall, and then getting Lazar also.
There is also hope, though, as Taylor Hall has expressed some, like, as you mentioned, he was the guy, and he's kind of glad he is not the guy in Boston. So he has expressed some, like, a desire to get a contract extension. And this could be an interesting thing to see from Hall because the Boston Bruins coach also likes to change up his lines, which could be a deadly thing as they go into the playoffs. Maybe you could see Pasternak with Hall on a line. Just give some experimentation for the Boston Bruins coach. And I think we can move on to the final trade that started off the trade deadline day is the Pittsburgh Penguins acquire forward Jeff Carter from the LA Kings in exchange for conditional draft picks in 2022 and 2023. Penguins again in the same division as the Capitals and the Bruins, who made a lot of moves today. And they just get a guy in Jeff Carter who can add some depth and can give them some quality minutes as they hope to win a playoff series and maybe make a big push as they are also in our um, Stanley Cup or bust episode. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, this is another trade to just beef up your team veteran wise. Jeff Carter is a very underrated player all time, and he's won 2 cups already with the Kings. He knows how to win. The Penguins recently have also won 2 cups, so their team is just full of veterans that know how to win. He's there to not only help on the offensive side but also the defensive side, and he's a quality player on both sides. And he's having a quality season this year, especially for a player who's 36 and who has his best years behind him. He was on that Stanley Cup Finals run that the Flyers had in 09-10. Like I said, he's already won 2 cups with the Kings, and he's really been an essential part to the Kings over the past almost decade. So picking him up is I think a good move, and the Penguins will be somebody that will benefit from his veteran prowess.
And that concludes our episode. I definitely mentioned it a lot, the Stanley Cup or bust episode. You should definitely go check that out as we made some points about what teams are big things. And there's one team on that list that did not make any moves. And I'm a little surprised by that. I'll let y'all figure out what that team is. You can find it in our NHL videos, or you can find it in their own category, Championship or Bust playlist on our YouTube channel. If you're not on there, just scroll up till it says Stanley Cup or Bust. It's got a number between 1 through 47. I know that doesn't help that much, but it's in between that number. And speaking of episodes, we will have our 48th episode, which will be talking about biggest needs for all the 32 NFL teams heading into the NFL draft. Austin, we made it about 2 months of not talking football, So we will end that streak. And it's definitely exciting as the NFL draft is coming up. So be on the lookout for that. And once again, make sure to leave a like, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and leave a review on Apple Podcasts.